I've now had the Rep Athena wall-mounted version for over a year, and I want to do a full breakdown, pros and cons list review of what I believe is an underrated piece of home gym equipment. There's going to be a lot of information in this video as I have a lot to say, so there will be timestamps down below, and I will also be breaking this up into a full overview of just the Rep Athena as a whole, versus the 80-inch option, which I have here, that has some specific quirks that need to be noted. I also think it's important to note that I have purchased all of this with my own money, though I am a Rep affiliate, which basically means that I have a link down in the description that if you decide to purchase this equipment with, I am then able to get some commission off of that at no extra cost to you. It supports me, supports the channel, and if you guys do that, I hopefully can afford to put some mirrors over here on this wall. So let's get into it. Let's start off with who this rack is for. This is definitely for someone who obviously wants a home gym, but is looking for something that is a bit more of a smaller footprint. Yet they can still, do cable exercises as well as squat and deadlift or RDL with a full, commercial style, commercial feeling setup. So that means it's going to hold up for a very long time. And that's why I went with this, Rep Fitness quality equipment, is mainly because I was concerned about bolting it to my wall. And I didn't want to just have some random pieces of metal stripped together that just all of a sudden ripped out one day. I have not had that issue. Obviously, with using this, it is extremely high quality and is worth every penny in my opinion. The overall dimensions of this, and I need to refer to my notes here, but the depth is about 22 to 28 inches. It's specifically 28 inches whenever the cable trolley here is like pointing straight out. If you just turn that to the side, it is the 24 inches. Now the overall width is 51 inches. That does not include the pegs down here at the very bottom, but you can take those off if you need to. And then it comes with two height options. That is the 80-inch, which is behind me, and then there's a full 93-inch, which I've actually experienced at my buddy's commercial gym called Peak Fitness. Definitely check that out. That's Ryan Patrick, really good guy. But he has two of these things on his far wall, and they are used every single day by athletes, himself, and his coaching staff, and they've held up great. So that's all the context and the overall dimensions, who this is for. Let's get into what I believe are the pros and the cons. And again, the main pro here is what I've already just kind of mentioned, is that this is extremely compact, but you get the cables, you get high quality equipment. I especially like this for people who still park their vehicles in a garage. This does not come out very far. It's like 2 feet, and you can still easily, as long as you use like what I have behind me, a lot of wall attachments, you can still easily park your car. It's also great for a basement where, again, you have lower ceilings, maybe some smaller spaces, little nooks and crevices, like sort of what I have here. And it only comes off 2 feet, and I'm still able to do all kinds of functional movements, dumbbell movements out over in this space. Another pro is the cable stack is incredible. Like, it's seriously smoother than a lot of the commercial gyms I've worked at or worked out at. And the weight stack here is just great quality, right? It hasn't chipped, none of the paint, nothing like that. And the stickers haven't come off at all in the past 12 months. So I really do like that. It comes with a additional sort of like extension. So I found that it works great for micro loading. Take some smaller plates, 1 1/4 or even like ½ pound plates, and I can put them on there. And now that I've actually gotten a lot stronger, I am able to put on a full 25-pound plate onto this and still, do different types of rows and progress my lifts. I don't know if these pegs are actually meant for additional plates. I think they can be used for that for sure, but it's more so used for bands. So there's a band post at the very bottom that can connect here, and that can also overload your lifts. I have not sprayed or done any sort of silicone coating. I probably should, but these things are still incredibly smooth, and I haven't had to do any sort of maintenance in the 12 months that I've had this. So I think that is just a testament to how good and solid these are. They are not noisy at all, and they do not wake up my kids unless I slam the stack, which I do not do in this smaller area. There is a safety pin here that is to be used with the trolleys, which are also pretty dang smooth. You can do this one-handed, come up and down, and then you take this safety pin and you can push it through, and that will lock things in place. I have not found that I really need to do this. I've completely maxed out the cable stack and done different types of rows and movements, and it hasn't budged at all. You know, it has a little bit of play in it. You put this in here and it still has a little bit of play, but honestly, like, it's the same amount. I think it's more just for like extra safety. Another pro to this system, which I don't know if they had this 12 months ago, but I noticed on the website, you don't have to do the dual cable system. You can actually just purchase one side and maybe upgrade at a later point. I do think that if you're going to get this specific rack, that I would just go ahead and spend the money to, you know, not have to pay for shipping or any of that extra cost. Just get the dual one, because you want cables. You're probably going to use them a lot if you get them. So dual is the best bang for your buck in my opinion, but having that versatility payment wise, or, you know, if you are on a budget, I think it knocks off a pretty significant amount. It was like $1,600 or $1,650 versus with both cable stacks, I believe it's still around the $2,400 range. That said, I would also highly recommend going ahead and upgrading your cable stacks. I believe they come default at around 80 pounds, which pretty good, but you know, even if you are someone that isn't as strong, I don't believe I'm a very crazy strong person overall, but having a home gym, I've been a lot more consistent and my strength gains have just exponentially increased in the past year, and I'm able to max out these cable stacks very easily now with a lot of my lifts, especially my pulling movements. So go ahead, spend the extra money if you're going to get this, and just upgrade the cable stack. I think it is a necessity because it takes it up from 80 pounds to 110, and then you don't have to utilize the additional pegs here over time or as quickly. The other most important pro here is that this thing is sturdy. It has that commercial feel. It does scratch a little bit here and there, which is a con. We'll get to that. But there are 8 lags that are drilled into the studs up here. So it is not going anywhere. I, again, have used this with very heavy RDLs. I have sat on the bar with those RDLs. My wife yelled at me, but I still sat on that bar because I wanted to see, with the full safeties out and everything, if it could still like hold my weight, because I just wanted to see, and it held me, right? Now I didn't jump up and down or anything, but don't do that. I wouldn't recommend that, but it still held. So there's no worries about me doing pull-ups on this thing, about it randomly just falling out of the wall when I'm doing different types of rows and crushing my family or myself and hurting us. I have had zero fears of that, which has been a very nice, you know, weight off my shoulders when doing these types of exercises in this home gym. That said, watch your kids. I got a 15-month-old. He does like to try to put his fingers in the cable stacks, so definitely watch for that. I don't believe they have any guards for this at this point in time. Now, with all of those pros that I just gave, I do have to talk about some of the cons of this setup. So one of them is really just the paint that is on here. I went with the metallic black, and I found that that definitely scratches up. I also noticed on my buddies, he has his in the red color, and it does scratch a lot easier, or maybe it just shows through more, versus the matte black that is on like the dip attachment and the safety bars that I have. That also includes the paint not matching the safety bars or the pull-up bar that I have, which to me is just a little bit annoying. If I knew that the paint wouldn't match those, which, you know, now that I'm saying that, it's kind of obvious, I would have gotten this in the matte black just so everything kind of matched a little bit more. You probably can't even tell on camera, but to me, it's just kind of annoying to touch this and it's nice and smooth, and then I go and grab my bar and it's a bit more of the matte, you know, finish that's on there. So that is one thing to consider when you are making this purchase. Again, if you're spending almost $2,500, if not more, with the upgraded weight stack, you want to get what you pay for. So not necessarily a con for rep, I guess, but more just, I wish I knew that. The assembly of this is a bit troublesome. Thinking back to a year ago, I remember just kind of being stressed out about it and how to set it up and making sure I was like planning it properly. I had masking tape all over the walls, just trying to make sure that I put it where the studs were and all of that. So it is a bit more of a complex setup with having to drill it into the wall. And overall, just making sure that it is secure. But once you get it, set up, it's fine. There is a little bit, I don't think it's the rack itself that makes it slightly crooked. I think it's actually just the framing of my wall being slightly off. So that does, again, for my nitpicky self, make me a little bit OCD at times. When I'm bench pressing, I just see the rack is slightly turned. But again, you go to a commercial gym, you're probably going to see the same stuff. But that is, again, something to consider. If you have weird walls and they're not very straight, then your rack is not going to be straight. That does bring up one other point, which is I do not have this drilled into the floor. On the feet here, there are 2 spots to drill this into the concrete floor. I have not done that simply because the plates that I have on here, this is a 2-to-1 pulley system, right? So the weights that you use, each plate is actually 20 pounds, but it only feels like 10 because of the pulley. But there's actually 220 pounds on each side. So that's about 440 pounds right there. I don't believe you need to drill this into the floor because of that. So, and again, I've tested this. I've tried to rip it out of the wall while doing crazy pull-ups and trying to kip and hit my head on the ceiling. And I haven't been able to do any of that. But yeah, you don't need to drill it into the floor, in my opinion. Don't quote me on that. Maybe you should, right? But I did not do that. I forgot where I was with this, but yeah, I guess kind of bringing it back to the assembly, it is a little bit more tough than if you just bought a regular squat rack. The other thing is that I cannot squat within this, right? I can't treat this like a power rack. So that, maybe from a safety standpoint might be a concern of yours if you're squatting super heavy or, if there's anything like that that's going on. I found that stepping outside of the rack has been completely fine. I also have the full size safety arms, which are the 5000 series because these are 1-inch holes here. And they're really long, they work great, and I haven't found really any issues using those with my squats, deadlifts, bench press, bent over rows, anything like that. Another con is that the classic pull downs that you'd want to do, or lat pull downs, you cannot really do that on this setup. I have tried sitting on the floor and anchoring myself with plates, and I just find that one, the stack is 110 pounds on each side. So I can't really go super, super heavy when I'm doing that. And if I do go heavy and I banana clip these together, which is possible, it's just awkward. It's just not going to feel like that commercial gym setup. So that is something that I have worked around by just doing a lot of weighted pull-ups, as well as doing single arm cable pull downs supported on a bench. I find that that works really well, if not better than a lat pull down personally, in developing my lats. So I highly, highly, suggest just doing that, and don't make that a huge concern. If you really are upset about it, there are plenty of other options for cable stacks that you can do that with that are separate. I was considering buying one because they're so small and just putting it over in this corner with my power blocks, but this gets the job done. The other thing is doing pet flies, right? You have this cable set up, so maybe you want to do bilateral pet flies. I find no issues with this. Now, the 50-inch width can maybe be troublesome for someone who is taller, right? You have a huge wingspan. You may not get that full effect that you want, but again, being 6 foot, so that means my wingspan is about 6 foot, right? I haven't found any issues. Now, I do use a daisy chain setup with these straps here. That does help me kind of cheat this a little bit more, I would say, and get nice and wide with those pet flies. But yeah, unless you're taller than 6 foot, that may be an issue. But again, you can always do a single arm variation like the pull downs, and you're still going to be able to train and do whatever you want. The perks of a home gym is you get to do kind of weirder exercises that you wouldn't get to do in a commercial gym. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind, that there's a lot more fun that can be had when you have a home gym, especially with something like this. And that does bring up my last con, which is the handle that is sent with this setup. I like it, it has like a urethane grip that's here. Now there is just a piece of fabric that runs through it and it can move around a little bit. And I have found that I'm starting to get some cutting or fraying on each of the handles, especially as I've gone heavier and heavier using this stuff. But it hasn't, completely broken. It just kind of gets in there a little bit. I am curious to see how these will handle themselves, no pun intended, over the next year. If, I'm gonna have to really start looking at some different handles. But again, you have a home gym, so you can buy whatever handle that you want, but the base ones have held up very well for the past 12 months. We'll see how they handle over the next, year to 2 years. For the overall attachments for this setup, again, the 5000 series of rack attachments is going to fit on this. So the dip attachment that comes on here is going to have a 1-inch, male portion or hole for the holes that are on here, and it works pretty well. I will say the dip attachment does have some wobble to it, so I fixed that by using a towel instead of the safety pegs that are here. I kind of wedged the towel around the rack, and I found that takes out the wiggle a lot, but it is something that I was really mad about when I initially got the rack, because it wobbled so much that I was like, I could hardly do, my weighted dips on it. It was really pissing me off. But the towel has remedied that, and it even kind of protects the rack itself and keeps it nice and pretty. The other attachment that I would not recommend getting for this is the Landmine attachment. I have not found a place to put that thing. It kind of clamps on like this. It's still sitting in the plastic that's over there, or I put it back in the packaging. I'm actually looking to sell that. I would just get something to wedge it in the corner, put a tennis ball around there. That thing was $70, and I don't know where to put it on this thing to actually utilize it. So don't waste your money on the Landmine attachment for this specific rack, because there's nowhere down low to put it. So those are the pros and cons. To just summarize for this rack as a whole before we get into the 80-inch part of this video, it's a must-have in my opinion. Are there some cheaper options that are out there? Yes. Are there more expensive options that are out there, like the wall-mounted Rep Aries that's like $5,000? For sure, right? But I think this is a very, very solid middle of the road, gives you that commercial feel and the versatility of a cable stack. You can still do all your main lifts, but again, you have that very small footprint and the versatility to have this again in a basement gym, in a garage gym at different heights, which is again, that 80 inches can fit in a 8-foot ceiling area that you have. So, and you get the climate control aspect of that as well, right? But it is very versatile. It is very safe. It looks incredible. I love the look of this whole setup. And from the 12 months that I've used this, it has held up extremely well. If I could redo this, I would potentially look at the tornado arms. I cannot think of the name. I'll put it on the screen, but there's another rack that is very similar to this that other people have commented on in previous videos. And I would have definitely looked at that, but I think that Rep or some of these other companies will come out with their own version of tornado arms, which will widen how far the cable attachments can go. But until then, again, for this, I think it just works really well. And you also get into the Rep Fitness family or ecosystem, which is just known for reliability and great customer support. I do want to answer a couple of specific questions I got on some previous videos about the setup. So for instance, can you decline in this area and still feel safe with the 24-inch depth? So decline bench. Yes, you can. Again, you just have to adjust the safety arms there. And it also depends on your bench setup. It's just going to take some trial and error for knowing how deep you can go. But if you have longer safety arms like mine, you'll be fine. Again, the Rep Spotter arms or safety arms, they are the Rep 5000 series because of the 1-inch holes that's on here. And again, you can link these together with daisy chains. I do have a thing here to link the stats together, which I hope to use in the near future, but I really haven't found a need to do that at this point in time. That's how you would do some lat pull downs. But again, just like the setup, you could look at I believe it's a Pegasus, which helps you sit on something and kind of wedge yourself down like a traditional lat pull down. But that would be an additional attachment that I have not used. Okay, part 2. This is getting into the 80-inch specific rack for those of you that have lower ceilings. So that is what I have here and what I have the most experience with. And obviously you get all the pros that I said in the previous video for the most part, but there are some trade-offs for getting the versatility or the change in the height. So again, basement friendly, you get climate control in a smaller space like this. I would say that the cutoff for people who get this rack, you probably need to be 6 foot and below if you want to get the full versatility of this. If you're taller than that, again, you're going to lose out on some options. So the main thing really is, and I had to actually put in a custom pull-up bar, which I can give you guys the dimensions down in the comments if you want that. But the height of the trolleys, I was losing out on a whole nother section of a hole, right? So I wasn't able to go as high up as I would want it to. And so that was getting in the way of whenever I was like squatting and trying to put my J cups on here. So that was really annoying. And I was like, man, I can't believe I made that mistake. Rep does put on their website that is, you know, you need to be cautious and be aware of that when purchasing this. And I was like, I'm, you know, just too excited, right? So I purchased this. I was really mad about it. Did the custom pull-up bar that did fix it. And basically the pull-up bar would go down the distance of 4 holes. I customize it to where it only takes up 3 holes now. So again, this can now slide all the way up. And then these handles here do not get in the way of the 45-pound plates that come through. Again, to remedy this, it's really not a big deal. You either, one, watch how you're squatting, right? And you have to be aware of it, do a custom pull-up bar like I did, and you won't run into that, and you'll be able to set up the J-cups appropriately. You can also put spacers, right? And it's terrible. I'll put a 25-pound plate on first, right? Especially when I'm warming up. Then I'll slide 45-pound plates on the outside of the 25s, and then I'm able to do my squats how I need to, right? There's really no issues with that. Again, you just have to be mindful when you're re-racking that you don't smack into one of those cable handles. And then the third option is to use the safety arms up top here, right? So you basically use the safety arms as your J-cups. They will jet out a good amount and then you can just squat with those. But again, you'll lose out on having safety arms with that. So with that said, going really heavy at 6 foot and using J-cups in this system, I would be mindful. And honestly, like I haven't gone super heavy on my squats because of this. I also got a belt squat, so I've been just playing with that a lot more and it's been really fun. But yeah, that's definitely something I've been cautious about, specifically back squats. Front squats, a little bit easier because I can kind of watch where I put the bar when I re-rack it, and that's better. But back squats, a little sketchy. You know, I would find that I would still sometimes hit those handles and that would give me some issues. Now, other options for this, which I've seen people put in comments of previous videos. One is I saw that people have flipped these trolleys around so that the metal handles actually face on the inside. So that is an option when you build this. So that way you would slide up and down on the inside versus the outside. I did not want to take this apart and have to put it together again. I had to do that 3 times already when I was trying to assemble it, hence the difficulty of assembly as a con. But that said, that is an option and I have seen people do that. I have not done it, but it does clear up the issue of the plates hitting that handle on the outside of the rack. And then the other option that I read that someone did, and honestly, this is my first time doing it, but I don't think it is correct in my opinion, but some people just move this around. So they'll still put their J cup in and then they just put this around, which I don't know how that works. I guess they're still just like smashing this cable on their J cup and between your barbell, like you're gonna mess some stuff up. So, you know, maybe they kind of tuck it in there behind the J cup. That's potentially an option for this, and you won't hit that handle, but you have this cable that's in the way, which I don't know about you, but I don't want to mess this up if I don't have to, right? And again, that's the main issue, and tons of people are asking that in the comments, like, why can't you just put the J cups in the front? Why don't you just lower this all the way to the floor? And this is exactly why. Like, this is now in the way. Can you move it? Yes, sort of. But like, I don't want to do that personally, right? So I have just trying to change that up. And again, it's something to be mindful of, get creative with. the more you know, the better, purchase that you can make. If I had to reset this up again, I probably would just flip these to the inside, but I do think that kind of ruins the aesthetic of it when the handles are inside and it blocks my nice pretty wall control system that I have over here. Last con I have for the 80-inch setup, there is at the very bottom here a nice cool little brace that connects the bottom of the two uprights, right? Looks good. And there's also two holes there for you to be able to store your barbells vertically. Really great, right? The only thing is, once you get this set up, you can't fit them in there, right? Especially a full-size barbell. Maybe if I got a smaller little, barbell of some sort for like curls and stuff like that, can't think of the name, what it's called, easy bar, that would fit in here nice and upright. But my full-size Colorado bar over there does not fit in the holes. It's not that it doesn't fit, it's that when you start to lean it in, the pull-up bar is in the way. So that is something to consider with the smaller setup. I was really excited to utilize that, but it does not work, at least that I've found with my setup here and trying to wedge it in properly. So that is a con. You're probably gonna have to buy some kind of wall storage for your barbells. So I hope this helps you guys in making a decision on what kind of cable stack hybrid squat rack that you're going to get, especially a wall mounted version. I think this is something that should be at the top of a lot of people's list, especially if they have the extra money for a cable stack and trying to combine everything together. And again, most of us in our homes don't have a bunch of extra space. I know all my extra space is being taken up by kid stuff right now. So having this one-stop shop for all of that is extremely, extremely helpful. And not to mention, it just looks incredible. It is very aesthetically pleasing and it's holding up extremely well in the past year that I've had it. So I really cannot recommend this enough. I think, everyone should have a system like this. There are more, variations of this coming out. Again, the Rep Aries system is incredible and it fixes a lot of the problems that I talked about, but it is a very high price point. Whereas this, I think, is that middle point where it's not too much, but it still gives you that nice boost, that nice upgrade to where you can really get all the commercial feel and versatility, but in your home gym, right? In your basement or in your garage. So yeah, if you guys have any specific questions, put them down below. I hope I was able to answer the majority of the questions from the previous video. But yeah, happy to help any way I can. So I hope this helps and you all take care.